This word is thrown around a lot, trading psychology, the mindset. But if you do not understand your impulses, your emotions, if you don't understand how to bring yourself back to a place where you're disciplined, none of this is going to matter. You can be the best analyst in the world and the worst trader. You can have so much understanding about trading markets. You can have 5, 10 years in the game, but if you don't learn how to control your impulses, how to follow things in a certain way, it's all useless. So I want to dive into a couple things today that can be kind of a springboard for you to just get the right foundation on a psychological level and have the awareness that you need in order to make the right decisions moving forward. Let's hop in, guys. And this training today is called the Valley of Disappointment. And it sounds a little intense, right? It sounds a little serious, but the awareness that you get from knowing maybe where you are in your journey and that giving you perspective can go very, very far. So check us. We're going to go over the plateau. Some of you are in this. Some of you are familiar. Others, well, hopefully this cuts that learning curve. You guys are going to be exposed to kind of different trading phases in awareness as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about paradigms and understanding them and what you can do to kind of get out of them. The plateau. So what is a plateau? A plateau is kind of where you kind of even off, where you're not really making higher highs anymore in your journey. It feels like you're just stale, like you can't get better. And this is something that we all experience in different types of skills. I've experienced this in the gym. I've experienced this in just about anything. And a lot of it has to do with your approach and honestly your attitude with what it is that you're doing. The plateau of latent potential. Now, this is something that comes from a book called Atomic Habits. This book, for me, was monumental. It allowed me to kind of understand the root cause of a lot of the things that I was doing, how to reverse engineer them, how to rewire them, and then how to also set myself up to implement new habits that were going to be beneficial to me. We can apply this to a lot of different things. So if you've never read that book, definitely check it out. This specifically is one of the most valuable things that I think pertain to trading. And as you can see, on the vertical side is results, and then on the horizontal side is time. And this line, this one that's just kind of straight, it looks like a bullish trend line, right? This is what we think should happen. And then the one that curves is what actually happens. So as you can see, what actually happens, usually the expectations are way below what we thought and how we thought things were going to. It's actually happening and what you thought was going to happen. That is what we call the Valley of Disappointment. All right, the Valley of Disappointment. And the reason this is called the plateau of latent potential is because it kind of seems like you're not going anywhere, but the whole time you are getting better. The whole time you are gaining skills if you do the right things. And you guys being here and watching, whether it's this intermediate course or the beginners one, or for those of you that are diving into, the members and you're part of the paid community and everything, obviously that accelerates things quite a bit. We spend just a lot more time together. But one of the things that for me was massive, and what I've seen with the hundreds of thousands of people I've been able to interact with, very rarely does your trading go according to plan. And what I mean by that is before we start and when we start, we kind of have this vision of how trading is going to go. We have these expectations that we set. And then all of a sudden we start trading. And for some of you, it might go a little bit like this. This is how it went for me. Things didn't really start how I expected. They started better. So for me, things kind of went like this and then quickly tanked. And then we kind of started to work our way up. So this is kind of how it went for me. And what does this mean? This means that as soon as I start, I didn't even do a demo account. I just went straight live account. Let's make some money. That's what I was focused on. Let's make some money. Let's make some bread. Let's get out of this job. Let's go travel the world. So my first week, I flipped 200 into about 700. Now, of course, I didn't withdraw because that would be too rational. That would be cool. And after that, man, that weekend, I remember I ended up buying a whole bunch of books, I started to print out all of these chart patterns on my wall and all these stuff. Like I just got so into it. I was like, all right, this is it. This is the future. It's like 2015, 2016 at the time. I just remember just being so stoked. I was like, if I can take 200 to 700 in a week, okay, this week I'll be at like 2,000. The week after that, maybe like 6K. After that, for sure 10K in a month. Man, wow, I can really do some numbers. So I'm stoked. I'm hyped. And market open Sunday, Asian session. I mean, by the time New York session rolled through, I hadn't really slept anything. I was just trading. That account was gone. I had like $12 left in there. So it was wiped out. And I remember just and the funny thing is I didn't even change much of my approach. I should have, but I just didn't. I just didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know what I had done right or wrong. I was just like, okay, so you can make it, but clearly I did some things wrong, but I can do it again, no problem. But then you can see here, I go below the the low. I break it. I remember starting to get into a little bit of credit card debt because I was like, yo, I'm trying to fund this account, so I'll pay for this stuff with my credit card. And then, I was working behind the bar, so when I'd get tipped out, I'd use my cash and I'd deposit it, and then I'd put that into the broker. I remember I went negative. And the journey is very different, and I'm going to show you guys here in a second, what actually happens and how I see these things. The reality is this, and I really want to challenge you guys to reevaluate your expectations with the market in general. Reevaluate how you perceive things are going to go to. I challenge you to question if your original expectation of trading is still valid or not. It's interesting because I talk to traders that have been in the game for years, never went back and just questioned their expectations about trading. They still kind of expected trading to go exactly how they thought they would have before they even started. So it's like, imagine still believing something when you have zero knowledge about it, and you just keep that belief. It doesn't really make any sense. We need to change these expectations so that we can focus on doing the right thing, so we can focus on actually being able to absorb knowledge, perspective, lessons, and so these things can accelerate. As you're going through this, eventually what happens is, because remember, when you start trading, you're doing the same things, years later. You're still trading on probably similar apps. The process is very similar. Of course, your knowledge is, 100 times more, but it's not like it's that different, the actions in what you're doing. And so eventually, especially with our kind of profession, the work starts to out-earn so much more than we even thought. You have, $100, let's say $1,000 in your account, and you do, I don't know, 10%, that's $100. Okay. Well, if you later have access to $1 million and you do 10%, that's 100,000. It's the same work. It might still be, I don't know, 10R, 20R, but now you're making way more. So it's really interesting because it's like time is on your side here, especially as your capital evolves. But the problem is our capital doesn't go up and our skills struggle to increase if we're so focused on, I should be here by now. I should be here by now. So the more you focus on the valley of disappointment, the more you focus on the gap of what you thought was going to happen and what is actually happening, you're really never going to get to this exponential curve. It's actually only going to chop up and down, if not go down, because your focus is on what you don't have, on where you're not, instead of who you need to become. And I think it really helps when you understand, where am I in the journey? Am I in the right place? I made this, and I honestly had a lot of fun making this because I was just looking back at my journey and thinking about how things went, and then just having some conversations with some of my best traders, some of my traders in the middle of the journey, and some people that are just starting out. And this, I think, the trading phase really goes. So check this out, right? What trading phase are you in? 1, beginner's luck. That's how I started. You start off, you don't know what you don't know. And so maybe because there's just not much getting in your way, you're just like, okay, cool. Like, let's just do whatever. And you don't know what's hard, what's easy, what's a lot, what's a little. And so things can happen for you. You might go up in profit and withdraw just because you just didn't know anybody. And this is kind of the same mindset like when you're a child and you haven't really inherited fears. So some things you just do naturally that may go really well, and some things you'll just do based on who you are that are absolutely terrible. But everyone at some point, if you don't have the right skills, especially if you just don't have the right risk management rules, you're going to experience the second phase, which is the humbling. The humbling. This is where you lose what you had deposited, you blow your first account, or you keep blowing accounts. You start to realize how little you know, and maybe how different it is your experience to other people. And I think it's good because for me, I remember my first couple months, I felt like I knew everything. I was like, oh man, like this is easy now. Like I've learned so much. Part of that was because, I'm like, it's like 2016, my circle, my traders circle, which were just, a whole bunch of strangers from all over the world, they didn't know anything either. So between the 10, 20 people that I was in proximity with, we all virtually knew nothing, but I maybe knew a bit more than the majority of them at that time because I was just obsessed. So I felt like, oh yeah, all right, I'm on top of the world. And all of a sudden, just understanding how many other traders there are, investors, high profile, high income, and just getting more awareness on information and being around people that have been doing this for a long time. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm nothing, and all of these losses that I'm taking, and I don't understand why. This is definitely an example. You're gonna experience a moment where you do get humbled financially just because of what you know or don't know, etc. And that leads to being in the strategy hopper phase. This is where all of a sudden your mind is expanded and you realize like, oh my God, wait, hold on. There's these indicators, and these indicators can tell me the future. Oh, this has got to be it. And then you're looking through and you go, okay, wait, hold on. There's the RSI and the stochastic and the MACD, and if I combine all of these and wait a minute, a Bollinger Band. So if I throw all of these things in and they're all in alignment, it's gotta work. Or you hear about some random trader who took 1,000 to 100,000 in 3 days, and you're like, oh, that guy, his strategy has got to be the best one. And I've just seen this all, and I lived this stuff. You don't build any sort of understanding or experience with a concept, it just may be an entry strategy, because you're just doing so much, right? You kind of don't allow yourself to build up the documentation. You probably don't even know what that is at that point, and you're just all over the place. It's not even like productive experimentation. It's just you're just running around like a chicken with its head cut off, right? It's just madness. But it's exposure, so it is useful. And I think some of you here right now, especially if you're in the beginning of your journey, you're probably not going to ever experience this, which is amazing. You're going to save yourself 6 months, a year, a few years of time and energy and a shit ton of money, which is awesome. And honestly, that's why I like where we're at now in 2025, because you just have a lot more people that have an edge, have a perspective in the market that is useful, that is duplicatable, and we've seen it work. So it's not like I'm the only one, but you've seen it. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, this definitely works. Okay, I just have to get good at understanding this and then adapt it to my own personality, and it should work out, as long as I can manage my money properly, make sure I'm in the right psychological state, and all that good stuff. Once you've kind of landed on some sort of strategy that let's experiment here. Let's start to play around with these things. You get to the fourth phase, which is the lab, right? Here you're now tinkering. You're messing with things. You found this is one. This one's making sense. This one's speaking to me. So you start to back test. You start to get really serious. You're looking at hundreds of charts and you're marking them up, and it's playing off of your zone. It looks fantastic. It's like, all right, this has got to be it. This is going to be how we do it. let's go. And so you fund up that account again, or maybe you just stay, or maybe you go and do a challenge or whatever. And all of a sudden you get to phase 5 and you're disappointed. You're in that valley of disappointment. You're trying and you're trying and you're trying and you're trying, but you're here. More time is passing by. You feel like it's supposed to be a winning strategy, but you're nowhere near where you thought you were going to be. And you start to really question, like, is it the strategy? Like, do I have to figure out some other way to approach this thing? Is it, what could it be? Is it the fact that maybe I'm missing something? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. You go through the motions, and eventually, in some way, somehow, and a lot of people don't, but you start to realize, wait a minute, maybe I'm just focusing on the wrong things. Maybe I'm only focusing on part of the equation. So this is where you might start to understand, wait, maybe my entries are fine, but how I manage it, my risk management, my exit, maybe all of these things are off. Or I'm not even documenting anything, so I don't even know what could be wrong with my approach. Maybe I should start to track things more. And I think there's a moment where I would say this is like a max pain moment, a moment of frustration, of just exhaustion, where you're like, okay, hold on, like, I need to just know what's the truth about where I'm at with this. And I call this the red pill moment. And I would say that, I don't know, maybe 20% of people get to this stage. Maybe. I think a good chunk fall off right in the beginning, phase 1 and 2. Like at every phase, you have people falling off of the journey. Number 5 is, I think, the one where you really have to push the hardest, because the longer you do something and it's not going your way, the more you kind of lose that energy, the excitement, the motivation. And then comes the moment where it's like you have to make a decision. Am I going to continue to do this? And maybe just like take this to another level, just approach this as a professional. Maybe, is at the point where you're like, all right, let me actually get some guidance or something, or let me just look at this in a way that I never have before. And that's where the red pill moment is. And if you've never seen the movie The Matrix, do that. Whenever you have a couple hours and, you've already studied, you've put in the work, and you're like, all right, let me just, wind down for the night. The Matrix. I think it's one of the coolest movies out there. It's more than it seems. And I'll just leave it at that. But there's a moment in that movie where the main character, Neo, is confronted with a very important decision to make. And Morpheus, let's call him his mentor, he approaches him and he goes, look, red pill, blue pill, 2 pills. Right? 1, the blue pill is just, hey, take this and continue living the life that you've been living. Back to just what you know. Whatever illusions, whatever reality that you were perceiving, just live in that. More comfortable, fine. But if you take the red pill, you're going to understand truth. And truth doesn't necessarily mean it's going to feel good, but it's just what is. And so in this red pill moment as a trader, it's not just with your strategy. It's not just like the exit entries. It's not that. It's everything. It's okay. What is it about me that I'm doing right and wrong? It's where you start to accept all of your weaknesses, your deficiencies. You start to accept and you see just truth. And at this point, you might realize, okay, I'm putting all this energy into these charts, and I feel like I got that down. So maybe I should focus more on how is it that my subconscious is programmed? All right, what is it? Why is it that I'm impulsive in certain situations? Why is it that it goes well until it doesn't? And you just get to these moments where you accept all of what it takes to be a trader, like a true professional. And you realize, man, I got to actually get my money up. I have to be in a different, financially, I need to get access to more capital. I need to get funded. But I can't force it. I can't rush it. I need to, become this trader and all these things. So that red pill moment is really important because I do think it's what makes or breaks and turns someone from good to great or good to done. And at this point is where you kind of have all of your trading system. You guys know what that is now. Most people never even get to a point where they realize, wait, all I have is an entry strategy. I don't have a system. I don't have the whole package. I don't have the process. And so the seventh phase, which is enlightenment. Now, I'm not saying, you're Jesus or Buddha or something, but this is where now you know, like, you're enlightened. You understand, okay, this is really what's required. I know everything that I need to be doing, and you start just doing that. This enlightenment phase is not necessarily that you're just immediately profitable or anything. No, it's going to take time. It's going to take work. It's going to take scaling. But now you're way more at peace with where you're at, and you kind of just allow the journey to unfold. You focus on just doing the right things. I'm sure, mistakes are still going to happen, but they're going to be less frequent, and you're going to start to evolve along with the mistakes, with the losses, and take it in stride and let go of time in general, and just do it. Just do the right work. And eventually this takes you to the last phase, which is what we call Tradetopia. This is where now you've gotten to a point where you're building, or you've built your utopia as a trader. You've built a world for yourself because of who you've become, because of the skills, because of the patience, because of the discipline, because you've just traded, and whether you win or you lose, you're doing things in a way that's serving you long term. And this is the point where you have the financial freedom, the location freedom, the time freedom, and you just see it clearly, or you're living in it. But before you get here, you go through a whole bunch of other phases, right? And some of you are going to get through some of these phases very quickly. Some of you might even skip a couple of these phases because you have this type of information, because you're either, working with Tradetopia, or you're just really just out. It's not like you have to have our help to be successful. Of course not. We believe that we will accelerate the process tremendously, but either way, like, it can be done. And I didn't have Tradetopia. It's like I just went through my journey, and it took a long time, and I'm grateful for it. So this is kind of how it goes. This is part of the phases, and you're going to be in different moments. And if you can truly realize where you're at and know, okay, I need to get through this, because you can't skip any of these levels. You just master them. Some of these you'll master quickly, and others you're really going to have to fight through it. And you almost go up and down until you get to Tradetopia. So with that being said, guys, we've talked about the journey of a trader, which is very much like a roller coaster. It's not something that is just a stairway to heaven. The ups and downs, sometimes the down is like a roller coaster. Sometimes the downs feel like you just get dropped off a cliff. And either way, as you're going through this, I do really think that over time, my mind is conditioned to look at the pain, to look at that resistance as a sign. It's like that is the sign to break through. That is the sign that, okay, if you can get the right perspective with this, if you can apply the right energy with this, if you can, transform your actions here in this moment, you're going to have a breakthrough. And so this process is really about self-discovery and self-mastery in a lot of different ways. And I think someone that can master themselves, like, you're going to be getting trading down to a science. And of course, you're going to lose still. It's not like you're never going to stop losing. You're always going to lose. But it's going to be in a way which is part of the system. There is no guarantee for growth if you're unwilling to change. And that's a prerequisite. You have to change. If you would already have it down if you were already who you needed to be. When you behave at that standard, you will get what you want. Hopefully you now have a slightly different perspective. This is just aiding on the psychology side. I have hundreds of these, and for different aspects, because there's just a lot that we run into as traders in a lot of different components. But I think you having awareness I think is just the first step. Having awareness of kind of where you can be in the journey will allow you to kind of diagnose what needs to change and how you can get to the next step in your process.